Testing 1, 2, 3. Jesse, is it coming through? Mayor, I'll wait till Lauren turns her camera on as well. Okay.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. In an effort to protect public health and prevent the spread of COVID-19, AB 361 has authorized public meetings to take place via teleconference because state and local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing. The City Council meeting is being conducted via teleconference on the city's website and is also provided on a wide array of streaming media platforms to offer access to the public to the fullest extent possible. WehoTV staff have confirmed that this City Council meeting is currently streaming successfully on Spectrum Channel 10 and online at weho.org/WehoTV. In addition, and as a courtesy, this meeting is also successfully streaming on the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/WehoTV and on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Android TV. WehoTV staff monitor this broadcast on all platforms throughout the meeting and will notify the city clerk and council should broadcast disruptions arise. Please do not interrupt the live meeting by calling or texting the city council about difficulties viewing the meeting. If you are experiencing viewing difficulties while watching this live stream, please reload the page or visit weho.org/WehoTV to access our official live stream and to view a list of other available streaming options. In addition, you may call in to listen to this meeting by dialing 669-900-6833, and the meeting ID is 859-0838-6550, and then press the pound sign. Please understand that internet speeds, device reliability, third-party platform reliability, and individual or personal technical issues are out of the scope of this broadcast. WehoTV staff has published a guide at weho.org/WehoTV to troubleshoot your connection. If you are having difficulties connecting to the meeting, you can also call 323-848-3151. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Are we missing a council member?
Yes, we are. And she will be absent this evening.
Okay. All righty. We are going to call this meeting to order. It's Monday, November 15th, 6:03 p.m. I will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Andy, do we have a flag? Thank you. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Present.
Mayor Meister.
Present.
Noting for the record that Councilmember Horvath is absent this evening.
Okay. Do we have any changes on the agenda from staff?
Yes, Mayor. Staff is recommending that items 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D be heard together as one item. Additionally, staff is requesting that item 2I be tabled to the December 6th City Council meeting. We were informed that an interested member of the public was inadvertently left off the noticing list for that item. So we'll bring it back for second reading on December 6th.
Okay, thank you. To my colleagues, how do we feel about 4A through 4D being heard together? We okay with that?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I'm totally fine with it, but I know 4B is just the amendment for services, but I know the other items have adequately covered the kiosk issue. I didn't know if we wanted to place 4B on consent, and if we get into a long conversation about kiosks, we can bring it back, but I know it's just an amendment for the agreement.
I'd like to keep it on if possible, so we can talk about the kiosk in the context of the whole public safety discussion, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right, then we can go ahead and put 4A, B, C, and D together in terms of staff report and public comments. And do we have any other changes? Yes,
I do.
Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. I thought I can address my comments on 5B in my council member comments, but I thought 5A, which is an exploration of alternative and additional public restrooms, and 5B, which is a measure to increase community safety on commercial streets. I would like to see if we can move those to consent.
I would be so excited for that to happen. To my colleagues, are we okay with that? Okay, so we're going to move 5A and 5B to consent. 5A, let me just read for the record what it's called, exploration of alternative and additional public restrooms. And then 5B, measures to increase community safety on commercial streets. And any comments we want to add, we can do so at council member comments. Is there any appetite to move 2G from consent to excluded consent? Okay, so we'll leave it on consent. I have a number of comments, but I can give those during my council member comments. All right, then it looks like we have an agenda. Can we get a roll call on approval of agenda? Motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam
Thank you.
City.
Councilmember D'Amico,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine,
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Excellent. Okay. Next, we have adjournment motions. Does anyone have an adjournment motion? Mayor Pro Tem Shine, did you? No. Okay. Anybody? Councilmember Erickson?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I would like to adjourn in memory of Brian Matthew Pruder. He was the son of Deborah and Barry and the husband to Christy Dawn Pruder, and uncle to Kanan Pruder, who's a good friend of West Hollywood and very active in our community.
Thank you. Councilmember D'Amico, anything? Okay, I do have an adjournment. I'd like to adjourn in memory of Dr. Roger Allen Hoopengarner, beloved father of Commissioner and longtime resident Lynn Hoopengarner. Dr. Hoopengarner died November 6th in his home state of Michigan after a 2-week battle with breakthrough COVID-19 virus, just days before his scheduled booster. He was a professor emeritus at the MSU Department of Entomology. He was a world-renowned expert in apiculture, which is the study of honeybees. He served as Michigan Cooperative Extension Specialist and researched the biology and management of the honeybee, including seminal work in the pollination of orchard crops. He was an author, co-author, and an international speaker on all things honeybee, and was cited in hundreds of research articles and books. Dr. Hoopengarner will be remembered for his kindness, generosity, humor, and passion for knowledge and learning. He will be much missed by his family and his extended family, including his nieces and nephews, cousins, grandchildren, and dear friends all over the world. Lynn, we are terribly sorry for your loss. I'd also like to adjourn in memory of P Squared, beloved service dog of resident Michael Vojkolevich. He was an incredible companion animal. I know that I'll miss his howls of joy in council chambers, and I'm so sorry for your loss, Michael. Moving on, we have 2 presentations today. Councilmember Erickson.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Is Karen Oakham here? If she wants to turn on her camera.
I'm here.
You're there. Wonderful. We found you. I have the great privilege of giving a presentation to our very own Karen Oakham. I've been trying to think about what I was going to say about Karen, which for journalists, I know words are very important. But more importantly, some will call her a friend, some call her family, chosen, or blood. Some call her an icon. I might be one of those people. But when I think about what I like to call Karen, I call her a savior. I call Karen a savior because of her dedication to so many people in our community when people forgot about them, when people chose not to talk about their stories, or when the history of our community is written. Karen Oakham is right there at the front, making sure those that we have lost, those that we must remember, and the actions that we must always take to never go back are always at the forefront. Karen has been a leading figure in so many things, it's impossible to list, but most importantly, and why we're honoring her tonight, is Karen was recognized as Journalist of the Year at the 2021 Los Angeles Press Award for her contributions, I have the proclamation here, to the editorship of the Los Angeles Blade, making her the nation's first LGBT newspaper editor to be bestowed with this honor. Whereas Karen was nominated by the membership of the Los Angeles Press Club and judged by some of the best editors in the country, and was recognized for her exemplary work as an editor for the Los Angeles Blade. And I know Troy is listening right now as well. And whereas the LA Press Club noted in the decision, and this is a direct quote, Karen Oakham's passionate reporting in the struggles of the LGBTQIA+ community and journalists covering LGBTQI+ issues during the pandemic earns her a Print Journalist of the Year award. And whereas after initially starting her career at CBS News, where she produced the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, Karen joined the LGBTQ press in the 1980s. After watching countless friends die from AIDS, she was committed to telling stories of underreported LGBTQI people and their experience. And whereas Karen, a longtime resident of the city of West Hollywood, and has been at the forefront of LGBTQI+ journalism in Los Angeles and West Hollywood for decades, chronicling the AIDS crisis and covering every protest and political rise of the LGBTQ+ community. She's always there. She's literally everywhere, locally for Frontiers, in News Weekly and Lesbian News and more. And now for let it be resolved that the City Council of the City of West Hollywood congratulates Karen Oakham on receiving Journalist of the Year and celebrates her commitment to advancing the stories and experiences of the LGBTQI+ community. Congratulations, Karen.
Thank you very much. It's kind of embarrassing, because I'm just doing my job. I was just doing my job just as you all sitting there are doing your job and being of service. It's, a noble public service, I might add. So this is one of those things for older folks like me to always make sure that when you see an intern at some event, be nice, because they may wind up giving you a proclamation a couple of decades later. So I've known John for a very long time when he was a baby activist, as it were. And so I'm really thrilled, John. I really appreciate this. As I remembered on Facebook today, after the Olympic coverage, I went to my usual 12-step meeting at Fairfax and Fountain, and was curious about this room downstairs and this guy named Larry Gross and this organization called the Coalition for Economic Survival. What the hell was that? And so I got to know him, and that's when I found out about the cityhood movement in 1984, and I signed up as a volunteer. No longer a journalist at that point. I got to be an activist. And I met so many incredible people, as a lot of you may know, many of them not with us anymore. But I was so proud of this city, not just as a gay Camelot, but for knuckling down and taking care of our own, and not only taking care of our own, but for others who flocked here because it was a safe place. And you couldn't say that elsewhere. I'm so proud to be, a resident of West Hollywood, other than 2 years when I skipped over to Beverly Hills for a minute. West Hollywood has been my home, which is very important as somebody who is a military brat, just to have a home. I want to thank you, John, again, and Troy Masters at Los Angeles Blade, and Frontiers, of course, and Mark Hundle and David Stern in Los Angeles Magazine, and the Los Angeles Press Club for recognizing me. I did the work, and I'm very grateful to see that it was appreciated. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Karen. Well deserved.
Thank you.
We have one more presentation this evening. This is TAB Chair Lucky Alexander online with us.
Yes, I am here.
Excellent. Hello, Lucky. Transgender Day of Remembrance is part of the City of West Hollywood's annual recognition of Transgender Awareness Month each November. Annually, on November 20th, the City of West Hollywood joins in the worldwide observation of Transgender Day of Remembrance, a day which memorializes those who have been murdered because of anti-transgender hatred and prejudice. According to the Human Rights Campaign, there have been at least 45 transgender or gender non-conforming people fatally shot or killed by other violent means in the United States in 2021. The actual rate of violence or deaths may in fact be higher, as victims are sometimes misgendered in reports. A disproportionately high number of victims are Black and Latinx transgender women, highlighting the intersections of racism, sexism, and transphobia. This year's virtual Transgender Day of Remembrance event on November 20th is presented by the Transgender Advisory Board of the City of West Hollywood for community by community. The event will pay tribute to those who have died with a reading of their names and will include the life-affirming voices of MC and host Sable Simone Loreka, musical artist LZ Love, Reverend Valerie Spencer, and the Trans Chorus of Los Angeles. The City Council of the City of West Hollywood hereby proclaims November 20th, 2021 as Transgender Day of Remembrance and encourages everyone in the West Hollywood community to participate in the virtual event. Would you like to say a few words, Lucky?
Yes, thank you so very much to the City Council for acknowledging our community. And my vice chair couldn't be here tonight. She had an emergency, a medical emergency she had to take care of. And I apologize, I'm in my car. We just got through laying the flowers for our lost angels. So yes, if folks just understand that our community is impacted by violence on a regular basis, and there comes a day that we don't have to have TDOR, that we don't have to honor those that have been lost due to violence, that would be great. But until then, I appreciate the city for acknowledging our community and helping to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucky, for being with us this evening. And we'll see you on November 20th. Now, I do also want to just say that we did not have a closed session meeting today, so there is no closed session report from our city attorney. And now we are going to move on to public comment. The City Council values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, Council cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. The public comment period is limited to 20 minutes with 2 minutes allotted for each speaker. We will start with public comments on consent calendar items that have not been removed from the consent calendar, and then we'll see where we're at, whether we will be able to continue with general public comments now or after or at the second public comment period.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to share with those in the meeting that if you were signed up to speak on items 5A and 5B, which were also moved to the consent calendar, you have been added to this first public comment period. And so our first speaker this evening will be Brett Lettieri. Brett, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, great. Good evening, Council. It's nice to see all of you, and I'll keep this very brief in an effort to keep the meeting moving. I submitted a letter yesterday to all of you and the city staff expressing my concerns regarding item 2G and referencing those concerns, which are clearly outlined in a memo dated 11/14/2021 that was sent to the City Council and the City Manager, or sent to City Council by the City Manager. I'm opposed to the ordinance as it is written today. I am hopeful and optimistic that the city staff and council are willing to continue to meet with the business community and amend certain parts of this ordinance so that it can truly benefit the people that need it most without doing irreparable harm to the businesses that create incredible workplaces and make West Hollywood the special community that it is. I'm also supportive and grateful for the Sheriff Department for all their hard work and what they do on a daily basis to keep West Hollywood safe. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Brett. Our next speaker is Errol Russell. Errol, if you would like, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Yes, hello. City Council, Errol Russell, one of 2 principal owners at Kitchen 24. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I too am calling in regards to item 2G, as it relates to minimum wage increases and respective PTO. I want to reiterate kind of what I spoke on last meeting, which is small independents. There are some exceptions, larger regional operators, chain operators, well-backed operators, but small independents really have 3 choices as it relates to the increases through now in 2024. And that is either to raise prices, pivot our model and reduce jobs, or worst case, leave West Hollywood, which nobody wants. Small independents are what makes this beautiful city what it is. One thing I wanted to stress and give a little more detail on is raising menu prices. Most restaurants abide by what they call an 80-20 rule, meaning that 80% of their sales come from 20% of their menu. A lot of people come to me and say, Errol, just raise your prices 50 cents across the board. It doesn't work that way. You have to raise the top 20% of your menu by several dollars in order to capture the sales necessary to recoup the cost of these increases. That said, I don't feel it's too late. I ask that council works with us small business owners in the future to help mitigate the challenges that come along with these increases, because we all have the same goal. I've talked to many people in the business community. I've been to several chamber meetings, and we all want to increase raises for those who live on a minimum wage. It's just that what's proposed now is only increasing the wage of those tip earners who make $25 to $80 an hour. I ask council that we work with each other on a CPI cap specifically, slow down the increases and limit to once a year, as it's very costly to implement them. A higher threshold for small businesses, distinguish them from large. And most importantly, total compensation package. The answer is there. I know we can figure it out together. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Genevieve Morrow. Genevieve, you can turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Oh, we saw you and you went away. There you go.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Genevieve Morrow, President and CEO for the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. We sent a letter to you as well in the hopes that you would take consideration before this reading, but we understand that there's more time to fix this. So we appreciate that, to really work with the business community. And it really isn't so much about the minimum wage, it's really about all of the other escalating issues that go along with this. And we met with our city manager, David Wilson, and Janet Jimenez to really map out what are the things that are most compounding to this that are unsustainable for a small business. And so many of the things you heard before, one is 50 below and above is just,
I'm on the call. It's crazy.
50 below and above is too small for, it's not enough to capture some of the businesses that we have 100 to 300 employees that are really considered small businesses. In the hospitality business, this is because you have multiple shifts and you're on 24/7 in terms of really getting constantly having the help that you need. The other is the sick pay. It's really being called, it's really a vacation. We need it to be understood of how that works with part-time workers, some clarity. The CPI needs to be capped. Right now it's calculated at 3% and it's already almost 6%. So we really need this cap because it can become escalated to $25 and it can be really unsustainable for a business. So these are some of the things
I can eat.
Bullet points. I'm gonna, if somebody could mute Christine. So thank you. She's eating up my time. We really need some clarity on the paid time off, especially for part-time. We also need you to match definitions of the state of what a part-time employee is, et cetera. There's a lot of concerns here, including who's managing it, how's it enforced, what kind of division is the city creating, and what kind of budget is being put towards this. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve. I'll just, as a reminder, ask everyone to remain muted unless you are speaking. Thank you. Our next speaker is Walter Schultz. There you go, Walter. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. As an independent restaurant owner in the city, I'm here to express the unified disappointment in this minimum wage order as drafted. First, I want to point out who the council leaves behind. The tipped union worker. This city council is screwing union workers. They gave you guys a carve out. The Los Angeles Times called this behavior the height of hypocrisy. This city council says union tipped workers, you get nothing. You're getting screwed, number one. Number two, West Hollywood's incredible hospitality community is the largest employer in the city. We have great staff. We supported the minimum wage order. We wanted to pay people more. We came to this city council's staff. We gave them all the sort of feedback we could, and we were ignored. We were completely ignored. This ordinance was rushed. It's poorly drafted. It's confusing. Perhaps most egregious, beyond screwing the tipped hotel worker, is this ordinance gives $7,000 a year raises to staff making over $70,000 a year. That's what this genius council figured out. Let's leave behind our great staff already making 18 to 20 an hour. Our hospitality community already pays this wage. They're behind. Your kitchen worker, your dishwasher who's making 17 now, which we all have, you're getting nothing. $7,000 a year is going to our $70,000 and above workers. This is the mess this council created. What a disaster. We want this fixed. We have great workers in the city. They're making 30, 40, 50 an hour. We want to provide the low wage workers more. This is a mess. I hope the council listens to us. We're smart, caring owners. We want to pay more. Please reach back to us. We want to fix this. As it's drafted, it's broken. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you, Walter. Our next speaker is David Wood. David, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to provide comment. Oh, you're on mute. Mr. Wood, unmute yourself. There you go.
Sorry about that. Greetings from my office high above the Troubadour dumpster in West Hollywood. My name is David Wood. I own an insurance business here. With but a few exceptions, most of the restaurants in West Hollywood are not owned by big corporations, but are smaller entrepreneurs trying to make a living. Margins are incredibly small, and to the point that I often wonder why anyone would want to own a restaurant. In my business, I work with restaurant owners every day, and I see their financials, and they are never very pretty, especially during this time of COVID. As has been stated before, most restaurants now pay well over minimum wage to attract and retain employees. This ordinance amounts to a windfall for tipped employees and does little or nothing for the bottom level employees, but sadly, they'll be the first to go or not be hired in the first place. Although it's virtuous to want better wages for these entry-level employees, it falls back on just a few. I urge the council to consider or to reconsider this ordinance to take into effect the tipped workers so that the bottom level workers can be better taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Lee Main. Lee, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Hello again. Sorry, I don't have a video today, but hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. Hey, everyone. Listen, I appreciate you reviewing the bullet point memo that we sent in. Please realize that we are all very concerned about the details of the ordinance as it stands. We all employ thousands and thousands of people that both live in West Hollywood and the surrounding areas, and we service everyone that lives in West Hollywood. And, you know, I hope you hear us when we say this will close businesses. This will reduce jobs. People will be laid off. Obviously, people lose their jobs if the business closes. and prices will have to go up, and they can't even probably go up as much as they need to, like someone said already. It's going to hurt, and we hope that you can reconsider and make some changes. I also find it strange to vote on this, something so important and really changing the fabric of the city, without your colleague Lindsay Horvath here. So hopefully you will decide to put this off, and regardless, we look forward to talking to you more about this after tonight and as we go into next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I'm going to just turn off the camera. Our next speaker is Jordan David. Jordan, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to provide comments.
Hi, this is Jordan David calling from occupied Tonga land, and I'm a voter in West Hollywood elections. I imagine you're all getting ready to congratulate yourselves for receiving the award for most business-friendly city in the county. But what does it mean to be business-friendly rather than, say, worker-friendly? In a society built on stealing labor, whether it be through chattel slavery, prisons and convict leasing, or wage slavery, it means enabling exploitation. Being business-friendly means when staff presents you with an established living wage calculator in 3 different meetings for the wage ordinance, you just ignore it. You don't care what a living wage would be. Our businesses are allowed to run sweatshops. Our workers don't get to live here. We don't care about them. We care about a handful of investors and their bottom line, and we refuse to regulate their inhumane business practices because we are business friendly. It means item 2G on consent will limit sick time in a pandemic to less than 1 quarantine and provide a dehumanizing loophole that allows employers to pay folks the council has deemed undesirable less than the minimum wage. Congratulations on your friendliness to business at the expense of working families. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Our next speaker is Michael Illick. Michael, you may turn on your camera and you will have to.
I'm going to forego you my face. I'm fighting a stomach flu, so the 10 o'clock shadow isn't going to be too pretty, but great to be here. I was a little taken aback by the last comment. I just wanted to say, my name is Mike Illich. I'm the Director of Operations at CAC in West Hollywood. I just wanted to say that I agree with the minimum wage increase for employees who aren't making at least $17.64 an hour already, regardless of their position. And I'm proud with West Hollywood to lead the fight for a minimum wage that is a living wage. And I was moved by the presentations at the last meeting. The real world consequence of not taking into consideration an employee's earnings who bases the majority of their wages on gratuities is not understood. It prevents restaurant businesses from giving well-earned increases or higher entry-level wages to true hourly employees. In the restaurant business, an employee who makes $18 an hour will not be given an increase, as we do annually, because you're allocating that money to employees that are making between $30 and $100 an hour. I think it's really important that when we move into this minimum wage, that we understand the economics of the restaurant business, which I haven't heard any understanding of that. You're taking away money from the lowest paid restaurant workers. So we haven't done the work to understand the economics of restaurant employees. And in rushing the increase without understanding total compensation, we will single-handedly decrease the potential earnings of the hourly staff that we love. In addition, a blanket 96-hour PTO without any definition of how it can be applied is irresponsible. There needs to be more diligence in understanding when and how it can be used and or denied before passing. Once again, there are real-life repercussions to doing this, not being defined, and I haven't even heard them discussed. The moral victory in passing this ordinance will have real-life consequences that have not been considered. If COVID has taught us anything, it's how important our industry is. The thought that this ordinance is helping our lowest paid labor in the restaurant business is simply not true. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Illich. Our next speaker is Alexandra Stafford. Alexandra, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello. Good evening. Alexandra Stafford here. I'm an employee of Fiesta Cantina, but mainly speaking on behalf of myself as a resident of West Hollywood. I'm here to second the sentiments of all the business owners in the meeting tonight, as well as those you've heard from previously. And this ordinance is very alarming for me as a resident of the city, especially as an employee. I'm not a business owner myself. I just happen to understand basic economics and the struggle that lies ahead for these businesses, as well as the inevitable trickle-down effect this is going to have on the very people you think it's going to benefit. They're not going to be getting a raise because their hours will be cut and most will be let go, as you've heard from the other business owners repeatedly tell you. My job's at stake. My coworkers' jobs are at stake. We're a restaurant. You should know that we can't get our hourly workers to step into salaried managerial positions because they're making too much under their hourly pay in gratuities. This is, put it very plainly, very reckless, and I hope that you're hearing everything that we're telling you tonight. We're asking you to take into consideration the valuable insight and the facts being given to you here. It's not a matter of greed, it's a matter of sustainability. My main question is, what is the plan? What plan is in place to help the businesses when they're drowning after this ordinance goes into effect? What is your plan to help the workers that you're ultimately forcing out of their jobs? What then? Please give this more thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christina Obergaard. Christina, you may turn on your camera if you wish, and you will have 2 minutes to provide comment.
Thank you. And I apologize if I talk fast. I have a lot to get through. So let me start by mentioning I'm both a West Hollywood resident and an HR professional within the city. So I will be overseeing this implementation. I'd like to add comment to what everyone has already said. The way the ordinance is currently written would be impossible for small businesses or businesses of any size to implement. Before voting on this ordinance again, I ask you to please clarify the following. How is the 96 hours of leave accrued or calculated? If I have a busser who works 10 hours generally, but fills in for their coworkers when they use their leave, so they sometimes work up to 20 hours, how much leave would this person accrue? When would they be eligible to use the leave? Is there a waiting period? Is the 96 hours of paid leave classified as vacation? And if so, does it have to be paid out on termination? Can we deny time off based on staff availability or business needs, unlike sick time? If this leave protects against holidays, if we have 20 employees scheduled to work on the 4th of July and all 20 choose to use their paid leave, are we left to close our doors on one of the busiest sales days of the year? Outside of the obvious issues of uncapped and skyrocketing CPI, as I listened to the council discuss their vision for West Hollywood last meeting, one with a more beautiful, equitable future, I was moved by the idea, but I couldn't help but be concerned at the lack of foresight. As someone who is also passionate about social change and justice, I would be remiss to not point out that the increased wage will have the opposite impact that you are intending. The average tipped employee throughout my company actually makes $95 an hour. The average non-tipped employee makes $25 an hour. The lower wage workers will not see an increase. This increase will exclusively impact those already living in privilege far above the minimum living wage. It's also important to mention that the service charge we currently use to provide the higher wages for non-tipped employees is one that is up for elimination. I'm also aware that most of the increased wages will lead to an increased cost. And as a West Hollywood resident, I'm equally concerned of how these rising costs will impact my neighbors who already live in an undeniably expensive city.
Thank you, Christina. Our next speaker is Phillip Cummins. Phillip, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, City Council. A lot of people who went before me who are restaurant workers and restaurant owners have basically stated, and better than probably what I can or will be able to, but what everyone said is true. This is going to help and provide wage increases to a lot of highly compensated people or people who are very well compensated. And hurt employment within the city. We will not open for lunch. It's going to be very difficult to find a place to eat at lunch. Those are normally the lower paying shifts, but they're gone. So we're going to do what we're going to have to do. Last time you spent 90% of the time talking just about the wage. Very little time was spent on CPI, it was brought up as sick pay, it's actually vacation pay, the implementation, et cetera. There's a lot of pieces of this legislation or this ordinance that are very messy and full of holes. We ask that you reconsider or take the time to consider, with the amount of detail that you did on the wages, the other portions of this ordinance, which are absolutely as important as just the wage itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Our next speaker is Adam Darvish. Adam, you may press *6 to unmute yourself or turn on your camera, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Melissa. It's Adam Darvish, a resident. I'm sorry that I couldn't get on video again. Must be this time the hotel or Wi-Fi, but maybe the third time I will have success. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to, good evening, Mayor Horvath, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, and Council. Wanted to thank you for your focus on public safety. I know it's on the agenda, and also related to behavioral health and sort of new process to address that population's needs. I believe that, again, with cannabis being available in the city and just the pandemic that caused a surge in behavioral health cases in the country and around the globe, I think this is the right time to look at behavioral health and what that population needs in our city. So again, thank you. And I know that Public Safety Commission has done a lot of work, and Kristen and also Tori, the chair, have shared a lot of information at the commission meeting. So thank you so much. And then on the consent calendar, item number 5A, thank you for moving it. I'm 2 hours ahead of you tonight, so I won't fall asleep. So my comment on that one is just wanted to thank, again, Mayor Meister and Mayor Pro Tem Shine for this item and looking at providing public restrooms for homeless population. But also, I think our issue is bar customers. They go back in the alleys and on our residential streets. I see them on Larrabee just urinating because there are no sort of facilities nearby by the strip, and there's a large population obviously going into the bars, and they don't have enough restrooms maybe that they're using the streets. But then, yeah, again, thank you for looking at this issue and for homeless and also for our customers that come to the city and enjoy the nightlife. So thank you again.
Thank you, Adam. Our next speaker is Michael Wojtkiewicz. Michael, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to provide comment.
So you all are over the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to forego this first round and ask to be recalled in the second round.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Our next speaker is Italy Brown. Italy, you may press *6 or turn on, go ahead. I see you're unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, like, I believe in you guys. Like, you guys are in a very intelligent city. You guys did a beautiful job building the city and cultivating things that are mutually beneficial. I just think that no system is perfect. I think that you guys' wage, you know, the way you guys' wages are structured, if I'm being candid, it's like a joke. I think that it actually kind of aims to block people out of your community. You know, I'm transgender. I'm a recovering drug addict, and I lost everything I own and went from $120,000 annual income to absolutely nothing and lived behind a dumpster for many years. And I made it out of the dumpsters and landed in Skid Row, but I work and play in West Hollywood as, you know, like a little dream to myself that maybe I can make it back to you guys' community as a resident and build something better for me and my family. And the way it's looking, it just kind of seems like it's not the way you guys' wages and everything are structured. It's like to block people that is not a PhD or people that are not have an important job. Like I'm going to refer to him lovingly as Dr. Honeybee. Is like, blocked out. And I just think it's very sad, because we're stuck in communities that are literally preying on us. I was like literally jumped 3.5 weeks ago just for being transgender. I stepped out of the apartment to go to a doctor's appointment and was mobbed by these 3 people just because I was transgender. I mean, it was an all-out war. I'm no coward, but I'm just saying, it's just not safe. And I just believe in you guys because I believe in humanity, and I think that you guys can figure it out, man. I really, really do. I think you guys can figure it out, and I think that if you don't exhaust every remedy for people that are homeless or people that are disenfranchised or marginalized, then shame on you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carla Leyva. Carla, you may press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to provide comment.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Carla. I am non-binary Latinx. I am queer and I was born and raised in LA. West Hollywood has always been a special place. I have worked and had fun adventures there. It was nice to have a safe space, but it was never designed for all queer folks to call home. It's been a city that has always been overwhelmingly represented by white cis males. Today is a meeting where City Council discusses the future of West Hollywood. We are having a conversation and meeting about justice and equity. If you truly want to be a leading city, then please actually provide equity and justice. No performance politics, but providing a true system of healing, reparations, opportunity for all queers. Second thing I want to say is I suggest you look into the Cahoots program and see where they are making the mistakes. One of it being not enough funding. The problem we have with social services, mental and physical health services is the high caseload. People burn out and the love they once had starts to disappear. As someone who worked in social services, I urge you to please take the time and listen to these folks, the amounts of stress and second trauma that they observe. You are the folks who allow this pain and suffering to happen if we do not have enough staff to support this project. Please go to the streets and see what people are dealing with, not just listen to the CEO nonprofits. You have the opportunity to create something beautiful. Last thing I would say is you are continuing to pay into a system of injustice by contracting the county Sheriff's Department and using them as a MET response team. If you truly want to change mental health, you will stop funding sheriffs to do MET. That doesn't work. It continues to fail, and you continue to allow this policy and cycle of trauma to continue in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Our next speaker is Daniel Reif. Daniel, you may turn on your camera if you wish, or press *6, and you will have 2 minutes to provide comment.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Daniel, county resident, very worker friendly. I'm here to comment on 2G, my discontent for 2G as it still stands. As it has been said, this is not a living wage. Living wage in Los Angeles County is over $19. Yes, through CPI and through increases, you hope to reach 20 within a few years. But when those few years come, inflation will also have skyrocketed and also would have increased, and we will have to come back to this exact same conversation because you will have a city that cannot afford to pay workers enough to actually live near their job. As always also been said, this is not a true safe community for queer people because they're not able to actually live in that safe community. They can only provide their labor for a few hours a day while they're working their butts off. They are only in a safe space. So I please ask that you address to really think about that and go back to drafting boards and really consider making a permanent long-term real living wage based on real math and a real living wage calculator as presented to you already. Additionally, sick time, as also been said, is not enough for one quarantine. So technically, any worker in West Hollywood right now, if they have COVID, will not be able to pay rent because their work will not fund them for an entire week. And third, please take out the transitional program loophole. There should be no loopholes in this ordinance. We need a flat out living wage for every single worker in West Hollywood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. That was our final speaker for our consent calendar items. We have exceeded the time limit. We're at 30 minutes. So if you had signed up for general public comment, you will be moved to the second public comment period at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Now we will move to council member comments and meeting attendance reports. Who would like to begin? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the public for all of your comments. I wanted to say, Councilmember D'Amico, at the last meeting, you asked that we females wear ties at the next meeting. So here we are, and I'm going to request that you gentlemen wear dress suits or blouses or dresses at our next meeting. So the challenge is coming back. I want to thank Commissioner Richard Maggio for helping me find this tie, and thank you, Mayor Meister, for participating with me when I called you so quickly. Really appreciate the teamwork. I also want to thank the more than 16 people who attended my November Sips with Seppi event. And it was so much fun. Thank you, Councilmember Erickson, for coming on the east side. We had a great time, and it was wonderful to connect with residents. I want to also express support for our pickleball community. Pickleball is really bringing a lot of people together. There is a Facebook page that was started recently that already has over 100 people, and a lot of them, almost most of them, are residents. So this is a fun sport that is bringing people together, providing well-being, providing community and health. I'm very supportive. I would love staff to provide an update on what we're doing to provide pickleball spaces in our tennis courts at Plummer Park. I'd love to see them at WeHo Park and in the new ARC building, so we give pickleball players an opportunity to play. I actually had an opportunity to play this week, and let me tell you, I'm going to be doing that once or twice a week because it's going to help me get rid of this COVID-19 weight. So the other thing I wanted to say is that yes, we definitely got the, it was so wonderful to be with our colleagues, and Councilmember D'Amico, we missed you at the SoFi Stadium, at the LA EDC Awards. It was wonderful to get one of the most prestigious, most friendly business awards this past week. I want to really thank our staff as well as my colleagues for working together to create a space for receiving this recognition. Since our last meeting, I participated in our events subcommittee meeting, attended the LA EDC Annual Eddie Awards, attended the National League of Cities Annual City Summit, which is still happening this week. I would also like to request a report from staff at a future meeting on the car spaces at West Hollywood Park Library parking for people with disabilities. There are spaces on the first floor which have direct access to exit, and the rest of the spaces, there's spaces on the second floor which only has elevator access. It would seem that looking into perhaps at some point moving those up to the third floor that has direct access to the library without using the elevator would make sense. So I would love some kind of report to come back to us on anything that has been done to look into that. The other thing I would like staff to explain tonight to the public is the draft redistribution maps for the congressional maps, because it is really disappointing that the draft redistricting maps potentially could cut West Hollywood in half. So if you can explain how we would be affected for the good of the public, what we are doing to contest it, and what the public can do to participate and give comment as well at those meetings, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Erickson?
Thank you so much, Mayor. Let's see. It's been very busy with meeting attendance. I attended Sips with Seppi. It was so much fun at one of our local West Hollywood businesses on the east side, Blackwood Coffee. I hope everyone goes. I go there way too much for someone that drinks way too much coffee, but it's really good. So there you go. And if you don't know where it is, it's where the old Food Lab was. And I know Councilmember D'Amico loved Food Lab. So it's right there. So I also attended the event subcommittee. I am currently attending the National League of Cities annual city summit, which is virtual virtual meetings. But anyways, I think we all know how I feel about that. I attended the Imperial Court of Los Angeles coronation this past weekend and presented a proclamation. It was amazing to see everyone there. I also attended the Stonewall Awards for the Stonies, and I want to congratulate Mayor Pro Tem Shine on getting the Trailblazer Award. It was so amazing to see you there, as well as Jasmine Canick. Karen Ayers got the Member of the Year Award. So Karen, if you're watching, congratulations. I too got that award, so we're in good company. I'm in good company with you. Jasmine Canick, as well as Unite Here Local 11. I also have met with representatives from Spin and Link regarding our last meeting and talking about our scooter companies and what we're doing there. I want to thank Mikey Friedman personally for her continued advocacy around that issue and making sure that we're taking into consideration everyone in our community. I attended the Emerald Village board meeting. Thank you very much. And then I also attended with Mayor Meister and Councilmember Horvath, the opening for Jim Sports Bar and Grill, although we lovingly call it Jim Bar. And it was so great to be there with our friends from all over the city, and it's just incredible. I also attended the Eddie Awards. I just want to say this is incredible. It was so great to be there with so many people. I also want to recognize that the work that was done to get this award was also done before I was even in this seat. So thanking the city staff, the council, as well as what we're continuing to do. It was so important. And yes, Councilmember D'Amico, you missed a really good rubber chicken dinner. So next time we'll get it again and we'll be there because it was a great time. Additionally, I want to wish everyone a very happy early Hanukkah between now and the next meeting when it starts. I want to thank everyone for the Veterans Day events and videos. You can still go watch it online. I thought it was quite incredible. TDOR is coming up. Please attend. It was great to see them here tonight. Thank you, Lucky, who I also saw at the Imperial Court. And between now and our next meeting, I think World AIDS Day events will have also occurred. Additionally, if you could give us a library update, that would be great. I know it's the middle of November, everyone's favorite topic, but specifically, could we talk about the playgrounds as well? I don't know if it's possible, but it would be great if our families here in West Hollywood could be able to utilize the playground if it's even possible to open it. I know I'm getting emails about it a lot, and although Plummer Park is amazing, we want to make sure that we could use all the things. So an update would be great there. And then I also just want to say, how do I say this in a nice way? I want to say that, the minimum wage conversations and what's been going on here, I hear it's rushed, and then I hear we didn't do enough. I hear that it's too low, it's too high. We pay this, we don't pay this. You make enough money, you shouldn't make enough money. I would like to say that what we are trying to do here at the city and what we are trying to do with this minimum wage ordinance is also try to uplift and make sure that we're doing all that we can as a city, but also knowing that we have to do more. I want to thank individuals who have come and called out that this is too low, that a minimum wage calculation for the LA County is $19 some odd for a family of one. And what we're looking at here and the modified schedule that we phased in together as a council unanimously, I thought was something I'm very proud of that our city worked together to push forward and do. Ultimately, we will, and I think, come back and always be open to talking to everyone, but the accusatory, the inflammatory, and frankly, some of the lies that are out there about it, I think have to stop. It's really sad that the Chamber of Commerce wouldn't send in a letter of support for the Eddie Awards to codify the actions that the City Council, before I was even on here, did to support the businesses. I thought that was sad, because if we're all going to work together, I think that means we all have to work together. If anyone wants to call me, my phone number is 920-527-8100. You can give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you. But ultimately, I would like to de-escalate this conversation and talk about what we're doing. And that's what we did at our last meeting together. I'm dedicated to talking about that, but ultimately I want to make sure that organizations that are there that are supposed to lobby for our businesses, that are supposed to be there for our businesses, can also recognize the great work that this city, and specifically the City Hall staff, does for this community every single day. We get to come up here every other week, sometimes, you know, and do all the things and listen to all that they're saying. But what we're talking about here in the city of West Hollywood is our staff actually out there dealing with businesses, dealing with the community, dealing with residents who are struggling every single day. Please make sure that you're turning any inflammatory commentary towards us as council members. Do not take it out on our staff who so diligently always answer the phone. So again, please call me, please talk to me. I'm happy to talk. I'm thankful and so thankful to the city staff that made sure that through their work, we were able to win that award, that very prestigious award for cities under 60,000 in LA County by a nonprofit organization that recognizes what we were doing. And I hope that one day all of us can work together to figure out what we're doing here for the city of West Hollywood and not in some faction-based approach. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember D'Amico.
Thank you, Mayor. Seppi, that's quite a challenge. I'll figure out what that might mean for me, but I hear you. And I appreciate your tie. You look terrific. And you too, Mayor, of course. So I attended, since our last meeting, the Biennale Arquitectura, which was an international exhibition about how we will live together in the future. And it speaks to the practical approaches and concrete solutions, highlighting the primacy of problems solving in architectural thinking. And this was a global exhibition from the global South, from the Far East, from the Middle East, and from the United States. And by and large, I guess the headline is, what I can say about our city is that we really do move things in the right direction, typically ahead of schedule, and if not, right on time. And our commitment to sustainable living, our commitment to the way in which we make sure that culture is represented, that types and opportunities for living are represented, that things as banal as how buildings are heated and cooled, to things as exciting as how an entire city thinks of itself as an organism. And I can just say that time and time again, for 2.5 days, I saw ways in which West Hollywood, maybe like a pirate ship, has stolen or given ideas to other parts of the world, but mostly I think together as a city council and as a collection of residents and visitors and businesses, we really do understand how we will live together in the future. And I'm quite glad that I went to go see that, and I thank the city for helping me to do that. In terms of the many people who spoke about our item on minimum wage, I read very carefully the memo that David Wilson, our city manager, issued, and I think this is clearly a case in which it's appropriate to say that cities are never finished. You know, our city isn't done. This isn't the last discussion we will ever have about the wages of the employees in the city. And I do think that each and every item that is on this memo from David is worth asking our staff to look into and comment back to the city council, whether that means it comes back as something we vote on, or it comes back on as something that confirms that the choices we've already made were the choices, the best choices possible. I admit I've never run a restaurant, but I do want to say that, and I am thankful both for people who are complimentary and careful with their words and people who are really mad, because every opinion and every voice is welcome. And for me, each person that spoke delivered something that I needed to either hear again or learn. And so I want to say that every time our city makes a big move, the last big move that comes to mind is our interest in seismically retrofitting every unsafe building in our city. We had to take a big step, and then we looked more carefully at the kinds of implications that step had. But I will tell you that every time in the 10 plus years I've been here, the big moves that we made have been correct, and that the city has helped us to make any adjustments if they were necessary along the way. So based on that, I just want to say that I am interested in our staff looking at these items. I am interested in hearing back from staff and from members of the community as much as possible and as often as possible what it is we can or might do. And you know, I think it's also worth noting, as Councilmember Erickson just did, that the 5 of us made this decision. That 3 of us didn't make it, and you need to peel off one of us to half vote on something in the future. The 5 of us made a decision to pivot at least 1% or maybe more how it is this city thinks about workers. And I very much appreciate everyone who employs workers and their commitment to people living full lives in our city. And I have one more parallel story about a big move. So back in 2011, one of the things that I was interested in was making West Hollywood the first fur-free city in America. And that happened. And people said, this is a disaster. Businesses are going to close. We don't know how many businesses are going to move out of the city immediately. We received several letters saying that this was it. They had it. And one of them was from John Varvatos, a global fashion company. We received letters from the head of Vogue magazine. We received letters from all over the country. And John Varvatos clearly stated, we are moving out of the city. Well, they never moved. In fact, they had several important events in our city for the Rape Treatment Center. And recently I heard they're opening a second store on the Sunset Strip. So I do understand that these kinds of big moves cause big seismic shifts inside companies, big and small. But I also want you to know that as a city, we are here to support our businesses. As I mentioned, during COVID, we gave tens of thousands of square feet to businesses across the city, asking nothing in return. We gave away public space. And my sense is that that public space will continue to be available to businesses. So I am eternally optimistic that this big move is a big move for the better, and that it is a long time coming, and it will continue to change West Hollywood for the better in the future. So with that, Mayor, I also wanted to wish congratulations to our colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, for her award. and also say that I'm sorry I couldn't go with the rest of you. I somehow didn't understand that we were all going. I thought it was just the mayor going. And so maybe I'll Photoshop myself into those photos, and we can just know that I very much appreciate the county's seeing the work that we do and acknowledging it, and my former colleagues and my present colleagues. Our work is never finished. Cities are never finished. So with that, I turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember D'Amico. Before I get into my comments, Councilmember Erickson, did you have questions on 5B that you wanted to?
Oh, yes. Thanks for reminding me, Mayor. Yeah, I'm in support of this item. I just know that the last time when we were talking about the East Side kiosk, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more, we all were very unanimous in the act of not wanting over surveillance. I think it was Councilmember D'Amico that talked about, we don't need to rehash it, go watch the meeting, but I do think this item skirts on that issue, and however staff comes back with it, just providing direction to, I know in the past this city has looked at doing surveillance items to, make sure that, I just don't want this to be a Band-Aid to a problem that maybe we can address in our conversation tonight. I think it's supportive. I think what we should do, I think it's going down, but I just want to be careful about how we do it with our conversation that we've had around surveillance in the past. And I don't think that was your intention. That's.
Yeah, I'll address it. Thank you so much. As far as attendance, I attended the ribbon cutting for Jim Sports Bar and Grill grand reopening. I attended the LAEDC Eddie Awards, where as you know, the city won for most business-friendly city, among those with a population under 60,000. Our staff is certainly very deserving of this award, particularly in terms of their work related to the pandemic. I hope I can carry the spirit of this award in my comments on the 2G consent calendar item. And thank you, Councilmember D'Amico, for opening the door. On the consent calendar regarding 2G, the second reading of the minimum wage ordinance, I want to thank the city manager for acknowledging that there are issues raised by the businesses that he would like studied. I would like to see a wage analysis. I believe the last study done was 10 years ago. In addition, I would like the city attorney to look into a highly compensated employees exclusion. I believe at the last meeting, Councilmember Horvath was concerned that with this type of exclusion, a city minimum wage could not be mandated on sick leave compensation. I actually don't believe that that is the case, and would like the city attorney to investigate how a highly compensated exclusion could coexist with a citywide minimum wage on compensated sick leave hours. Also, we had a member of the public telling us what was not legal, not our city attorney. So I'd like to hear from our city attorney. Regarding the other concerns, I'd like the city manager to basically review and address all of the concerns raised, as Councilmember D'Amico mentioned, raised by the businesses in their memo. The CPI cap, we do have our city union employees cap at 3.25% per year. So that is something that we should definitely look at. The paid time off rules, small and large business definitions in terms of full-time employees, because I do know that most definitions are based on full-time employees, not part-time employees, but there may be some formula that can be used depending on the hours worked to determine if a business is small or large based on full-time and part-time employees. And I also agree that using 2019 numbers for 2021 may not make sense when employees may have left or been laid off and not replaced. So for 2022, perhaps it should be based on numbers of employees from first quarter of 2021 or an average of 2019 and first quarter of 2021. But I do agree that 2019 numbers may not be realistic. Of course, we want to know who at the city will be managing this. One comment was, will we have an Office of Wage Standards? I'm not even sure what that office is, but I'd like to know more about it. Also, on a separate note, Staff's report at the last meeting indicated that extensive outreach had been conducted with our businesses. And if that were the case, these questions and concerns really should have been resolved prior to this item coming back to us on November 3rd. I know that staff was rushed into bringing this back so that the second reading would allow for a January 2022 start. But frankly, this has been painful. So I just, again, I appreciate that our city manager has brought forward this memo. I'm very, very supportive in looking at all of these items and concerns. I'm also, very excited to have a minimum wage that is, working towards a more livable wage. But I do agree that, if the city manager had to send this memo with a second reading, it does tell me that we rushed this. So, and I agree with Councilmember D'Amico, when we did the seismic retrofit, we were very enthusiastic. We got it on the, on the books, and then we pulled back with condominiums because we found out that the way condominiums work, it would be virtually impossible to force seismic retrofit in those instances. So, we take 2 steps forward, or maybe 3 steps forward. Maybe we have to take a half a step back, but I really feel that this is an important, a very important ordinance that we're putting forward for our workers, but it also does impact our businesses. So let's, to me, to be honest, a reporter asked me, well, how do you feel about being the first city to have the highest wage? And I said, personally, it doesn't matter to me to be the first. It's most important to me for it to be done right. So that's where I stand on that. Regarding 5B, which was moved to consent, this is an item to work with the Public Safety Commission and businesses to develop a commercial public safety camera rebate program and create a commercial neighborhood watch model. I understand the concerns about surveillance. This is not about surveillance. This is about, like I have a Ring unit on my doorbell. I have a, motion detector. This is about the things that go on in front of a store. This is not a forced item. This is actually something to help businesses to accomplish this and maybe get a little rebate from, by getting a lower discount on their business license tax, or something like that. It's to encourage eyes on the street, but by no means are we forcing this. And the commercial neighborhood watch model, I'm not sure what that will look like, whether it will be one commercial neighborhood watch, or it will be integrated with the residential areas, or it'll be based on the different sections of our city. But I think it's important that we establish a program that is geared towards our business community. And so that's what I'm hoping to do with 5B. So thank you to my colleagues for supporting that. Announcements, I just want to remind everyone that December 1 is World AIDS Day, and November 30th through December 2nd, AIDS Watch, the electronic memorial to those lost to HIV, will be viewable on WehoTV, and an outdoor location to be determined starting the evening of Monday, November 30th, and running through the evening of Wednesday, December 2nd. On December 1st, the Alliance for Housing and Healing will place flowers on each of the memorial plaques along Santa Monica Boulevard. December 1st at 6 p.m., the annual Paul Andrew Stark Warrior Awards presentation will take place virtually on Zoom. The event will feature a plaque presentation ceremony for the Warrior Award recipients and a presentation on the West Hollywood HIV Zero initiative from Aaron Celius, PhD, from the Maroon Society. So we have that to look forward to. And I believe that there are actually a couple other events, and I imagine that they are on the calendar, or we can get you that information if you're interested. And now we will go to the city clerk to see what the city manager's report. Oh, how could I forget? My goodness, Oscar Delgado. And I don't know if our city manager wants to I don't know if David is with us and wants to speak.
Yeah,
or-
David will join us later. I'll give kind of the quick updates. Updates from staff with respect to the COVID-19 rental assistance program. It continues to be available to residents financially impacted as a result of the pandemic. For more information, please visit weho.org/services/social-services/financial-assistance. With respect to Mayor Pro Tempore Shine's items, we can most definitely take a look at the ADA spaces to see if they can be moved. Also, with respect to pickleball, our great Recreation Services Manager, Stephanie, is available to give a quick update. So Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, and council members. A quick pickleball update. So resurfacing at the courts will conclude at Plummer Park at the end of November, pending no additional inclement weather. Staff is working with tenacity to finalize a pickleball schedule and certainly will adjust along the way as we open. We started this project midsummer with the help of facility staff with a projected December end date, so we're on target. We also ordered supplies. We're looking at additional storage space for equipment, and certainly looking next at our schedule at West Hollywood Park and the Arc and how to add additional programming once we open. Staff looks forward to working with constituents and working with Tenacity, our contractor, to develop new programs and a schedule that gets pickleball off to a great start at Plummer Park and certainly at West Hollywood Park as well. Additional information regarding programs will be available soon, but individuals can look out at the Courts app. That's KOURTS. That's to make reservations for tennis right now and also pickleball when that's available. Or additional information will be posted at the courts. Individuals can also email recreation@weho.org, and then any questions will be forwarded and answered regarding their concern on pickleball.
I think Councilmember Erickson has a question.
I do. May I go, Mayor? Okay, thank you. I know that there has been some public commentary regarding Tenacity, and I know that before the city council rehears, I think, their contract renewal this year and next year, maybe it could be agendized to go to the Public Facilities Commission so more publics be able to be engaged on that discussion, so it's fully encompassing, or what would your recommendation be there? I just want to make sure the public can talk about Tenacity, because I've heard all sorts of things, and I just want to make sure the public has enough time to fully express their opinions and not maybe at a longer council meeting that they might not be able to come to.
Yeah, certainly. We can certainly take a look at that. And their contract up for any amendment will be due up at the end of June, so okay. July 1. We did the 18-month, certainly because of COVID. We knew the first year would probably be a little rocky and we need to get adjusted. But certainly when we met with Tenacity to get started, we had our list of things at the top of our list to complete, such as getting on the app, making these adjustments, updating the Pro Shop, and doing all of those things as well, which they've done a great job with. But certainly Josh has done a great job of reaching out to constituents, getting information on pickleball, the Facebook page that Shine mentioned. Also, Josh is working with them to get some additional dates and times that may work as far as pickleball and days and hours that may be accessible. Of course, courts need to be shared, and this goes along with everything, gymnasium or anything else that we're looking at. So we'll certainly take that into consideration as we move forward.
Okay, Oscar, any?
Yep, I have a couple more. With respect to the question on redistricting, I've got our Community and Legislative Affairs Manager, John Leonard, who can give a quick update.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm going to address Mayor Pro Tem Shine's request about redistricting. So a little bit of background to start with. Every 10 years, state legislative districts, congressional districts, county supervisor districts, as well as districts in cities that have them, such as Los Angeles, are redrawn based on the new census data. So that process for redrawing the districts differs between each organization, but it typically involves the work of citizen committees. So we've been following these redistricting procedures in order to identify any concerns that may come up. And one did last week. So last week, the most recent congressional district maps were released, and they showed that West Hollywood was being divided by 2 different congressional districts. So this is really concerning to us as a city. It would cause confusion for our residents. It would also make it more difficult for our residents and for city staff to advocate for issues as they arise. So with this in mind, this afternoon, we submitted a letter to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission outlining all of our concerns with this and requesting that such a small city such as West Hollywood not be split between 2 congressional districts. So I would also ask any residents that are also concerned with this or other individuals to also submit comment. It's very easy to submit comment to the Redistricting Commission. If anybody can visit wedrawthelinesca.org/contact, they can easily submit public comment. There's a few questions that are asked, and then you can type in your public comments. Again, that is wedrawthelinesca.org/contact. And We Draw the Line CA is all one word. There will also be a public meeting this Wednesday, November 17th, of the Redistricting Commission that will be specifically for congressional redistricting lines in California. The purpose of the meeting is simply to take public input on those maps. So if anybody submits public comment written in advance, the commissioners will see that, but you can also join that meeting, which starts at 3 p.m. and goes until 8 p.m. or until the conclusion of business on that day as well. I'm available for any questions.
John, could we also give you direction, or I'm sorry, not you, but the comms team to put out some information on our social media channels and maybe some type of an alert before that meeting? Because I know a lot of residents have contacted me, so it'd be great if comms could quickly, because they do such a great job, get it out there so that way we can all share it, because I know many residents don't want to know, or they probably want to make their voices heard on this.
Yes, we can provide the same information that I provided tonight to our communications team and ask them to push out the information about how people can make public comments on the congressional redistricting maps, because that is a very important topic for us here in the city.
Oscar?
One last, Councilmember Erickson wanted an update on the park. So I've got Steve Campbell, our Facilities and Recreation Services Director, who can give you the latest information on our beautiful rec center.
Great, thank you, Oscar, and thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. As I understood the question with respect to the playground, we're not able to open it at this time due to the fact that every playground undergoes very rigorous and thorough inspection and testing of all the items that are associated with it. And unfortunately, the playground hasn't passed all of those tests. We're actively working with the contractor to resolve those issues, and hopefully we'll get there soon, and we can kind of consider that as part of a phased opening, and perhaps allow the public to use some of the park areas prior to actually opening the building. The same kind of goes for where we're at with the building itself. I'm hopeful that we'll be there before the end of the year, but this is a difficult process going through the commissioning and testing of all the systems in the building and making sure that it's right before we actually accept it and move in. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions? Anything else, Oscar, acting?
Nope, now we are officially done.
Okay, well then, to our Madam City Clerk, what is the fiscal impact of our consent calendar with the additions of 5A and 5B and the tabling of item 2I?
Fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar with the items added and removed, as you referenced, is $1,406,000 in expenditures, $0 in revenue, and $0 in waived fees.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve our consent calendar?
So moved.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister. The motion passes.
Terrific. Okay, now we are going to move on to public hearings. We do have a public hearing this evening, item 3A, an ordinance of the City of West Hollywood amending the West Hollywood Municipal Code regarding education, signage, and training requirements for business establishments that serve alcohol for on-site consumption and code enforcement updates to the administrative citation fee schedule. And the public hearing is now open. Are there any disclosures from council members?
I have no disclosures, but I wonder if there are many speakers for this item.
And Madam City Clerk, are there many speakers on this item?
We have one speaker for this item.
Okay, and we have, oh, Madam City Clerk, how is this hearing noticed?
It was noticed in the West Hollywood Independent as well as the city's legally required posting locations.
Thank you very much. And now we have staff to present this. Staff representative, please introduce yourself and give us a brief staff report.
Absolutely. And thank you and good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. My name is Danny Rivas, and I'm the Code Compliance Manager for the City of West Hollywood. Also joining on this item is Jackie Rocco, Director of Public Works, Kristen Cook, Director of Public Safety, Captain Ramirez and Lieutenant Mulder from our West Hollywood Sheriff Station, and Christoph Schroeder and Jonathan Holub from the Human Services and Rent Stabilization Department. As the mayor mentioned, this item is proposing changes to the West Hollywood Municipal Code, requiring posting of signage and training concerning the safety and awareness of patrons at business establishments that serve alcohol for on-site consumption. A fee resolution is also being proposed, which would add the new ordinance to the administrative citation fee schedule. And separately, while taking advantage of the changes being made to the fee resolution, proposing adjustments to specific sections related to the rent stabilization ordinance. To provide a quick overview and background on this proposed ordinance, in late summer of this year, concerns at business establishments that serve alcohol for on-site consumption emerged, with claims of individuals feeling that they had been drugged without their consent. In addition, there were reports of patrons stating they may have also been sexually assaulted. Some of those reports were filed with the West Hollywood Sheriff Station and are being investigated. The city issued a press release following those reports, emphasizing the seriousness of the claims made and urging everyone who believes they were a victim of being drugged or sexually assaulted to reach out and report directly to the West Hollywood Sheriff Station for investigation. Following that press release, the city's Code Compliance Division, in conjunction with the Public Safety Department and West Hollywood Sheriff Station, held a meeting with entertainment venues to bring to their attention recommendations to increase training, safety, and awareness concerning alcohol and illicit drugs. Staff conducted research following that business safety meeting and met with several organizations and is now recommending taking a progressive approach and mandating a program with businesses that serve alcohol for on-site consumption aimed at curbing harm related to overuse of alcohol through a responsible beverage service training, incorporating a separate training related to bystander intervention, and increasing awareness of patrons who may have been drugged, which is intended to deter incidents of sexual assault, and requiring the posting of signage at these businesses that communicates this program's efforts. So this concludes the presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions? Okay, if not, then we can move to public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Our only speaker for item 3A this evening is David Juarez. David, if you would like, you may turn on your camera and you will have 2 minutes to provide comment.
Good evening, council members. My name is David Juarez, and I'm with the California Restaurant Association. I am calling on item 3A to ask you to exempt restaurants from requiring them to have staff go through the BI training. Restaurants are different than bars, clubs, entertainment venues, or lounges. the county's Department of Public Health has acknowledged that there's a difference between restaurant and other establishments due to it being more of a controlled environment. The main reason why people visit restaurants is to sit and eat, to have a meal, as opposed to bars, clubs, any other entertainment venues or lounges. It's to drink, to mingle, just to interact with one another, and just to have a good time, right? So we believe that due to it being a more controlled environment, that the BI training is not necessary for the restaurant sector. And also the April 1st, 2022 deadline is a bit concerning for our members. We requested the deadline when businesses need to comply by, with the BI training being moved to July 1st, 2022. This way it's aligned with the RBS training that the ABC will be administering next year as well. So with that, I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Danny, can you address that? Oh, I see we have another.
Yeah, Walter Schild raised his hand. Mr. Schild, I didn't realize you wished to speak on this item, but go ahead, you'll have 2 minutes.
Yes, I'm sorry that wasn't part of my piece. First of all, I want to thank Danny Rivas. He and his colleagues have been great in reaching out to restaurants throughout the entire pandemic, and I know we're all appreciative of the city staff who've been phenomenal for us. The concern I have as a small business restaurant owner is we already have responsible beverage training mandated by the state coming down. Our staff, our bartenders, servers are already going through that process. I don't think West Hollywood needs to duplicate efforts that are already required. And then a lot of our small business restaurants, we are really restaurants. We're not nightclubs that have a restaurant license that are more nightlife oriented. We really are separate. So the concerns about drugging of drinks and high density bars, that I share a concern that if that's an issue, I think a blanket regulation on every restaurant in the city, from Tender Greens that might serve beer to our restaurant that serves alcohol, is unnecessary. Even though I'm supportive of code compliance, they're a great partner. I think this is a bit further than necessary. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Walter. So Danny, could you please address these concerns? Because I can understand why a restaurant that's actually a restaurant in our city would have concerns about this ordinance.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. And what we really took is following along the same lines of what the responsible beverage service training was. So this is a state mandate. This was adopted already through the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, actually back in 2017, and it had an implementation date of last year. But as a result of the pandemic, they extended that date through AB 82. And so what essentially happened is pushing the July 1st of 2021 to July 1st of 2022. In looking at the bystander intervention training, we were looking at what categories and businesses would be most impacted. And the fact that the state is mandating the responsible beverage service training for any alcohol establishment that provides for on-site consumption, and that would apply to restaurants, we took that same approach. So that's the reason why we proposed what we proposed before you this evening, was to include that same category of business.
Okay, thank you. Do my colleagues have any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Danny, I was wondering, I looked at this and I see that managers would be required to, as well as alcohol servers. What about security guards for the bystander training?
Yeah, great question, Mayor Pro Tem. So we again followed along the similar lines of what the state legislation provides and what they define as an alcohol server. So the manager would have to be a manager of an alcohol server. So if it was a manager that maybe just managed folks that were administrative or financial and they had nothing to do with alcohol serving, then they wouldn't have to go through this training. But an alcohol server, to answer your question about security, they are a part of that definition. So they would be included in terms of having to go through this training, the bystander intervention training, as well as the responsible beverage service training because essentially any employee or person that is checking identification into a business establishment for on-site consumption of alcohol would be required to go through it.
Okay, so just to clarify, all the security that works for the businesses would need to go through this.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Erickson.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I was just gonna make a motion, but I didn't want to interrupt anyone if there are questions or commentary.
Councilmember D'Amico, did you have a question?
No, and I can wait for John to move the item, or I can move the item.
Okay, well, first let me close the public hearing. And now, Councilmember Erickson, if you'd like to make a motion.
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor. I would like to move staff's recommendations 1 through 3. And that's it.
I'll second. Yes.
Okay. And can we please get a roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Prior to conducting the roll call, I would just like to read the full title of the ordinance into the record.
Thank you so much.
Sure. We're introducing on first reading an ordinance of the City of West Hollywood, amending the West Hollywood Municipal Code to add Chapter 9.13, Business Establishments - Posting and Training Requirements of Title 9, Public Peace and Safety, to require posting of signage and training related to patron safety and awareness at business establishments that serve alcohol for on-site consumption, amending Title 5 for reference, and amending Chapter 1.08, General Penalty Provisions, to make violations subject to administrative penalties. And now I will conduct roll call. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we're just moving on through. Let's start with, we're on unfinished business. As we discussed before, we are going to hear 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D together. I believe that staff has a nice big report for us. Our city manager, David Wilson, is going to start that off. We'll start with the staff report and then we'll see what time it is. We'll either break before or after public comment and go on from there. Okay. And I'm going to hand it over.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Fortunately, I was not included in the tie challenge, but all of your ties look fabulous. I am actually on vacation right now, so thank you to Oscar Delgado for sitting in as city manager this evening. But I did want to participate in this very important community safety and well-being discussion. As you may recall, during the budget discussion this past June, the City Council decided not to increase funding for public safety and instead have a comprehensive discussion regarding reimagining policing. There's also been numerous discussions amongst the City Council, council subcommittees, commissions, advisory boards, and community members related to various community safety priorities prior to and after that budget discussion. The City Council this City Council meeting provides the opportunity for a comprehensive public discussion regarding community safety and well-being. We are consolidating items 4A through 4D for the purposes of the presentation and discussion. At this time, staff is seeking direction from the City Council regarding goals and priorities for enhancing community safety and well-being. The information in the staff reports, tonight's presentations, the resident survey, and the numerous recent public comments should help inform the council's decision or direction. City staff can then take this direction regarding goals and priorities and use it to develop a comprehensive plan and funding strategy for enhancing community safety and well-being. To get us started, I would like to provide some context regarding the City of West Hollywood's long history for promoting justice and equity. For nearly 4 decades, the city has continued to work diligently to provide programs that defend the fundamental rights of its community members, and also contribute to the safety and well-being of our constituents. This includes LGBTQ people, people with disabilities, seniors, people of color, immigrants, women, and others. West Hollywood prides itself on being a safe, inclusive, and respectful place. The city's commitment to social justice and equity and equal rights is the foundation of our approach. The City of West Hollywood's Public Safety Department provides oversight of law enforcement and fire safety and coordinates community programs to reduce crime and increase public safety. The city contracts with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for law enforcement, the Los Angeles County Fire Department for fire protection services, and Block by Block and PAC West for additional safety services. These contracts and programs positively impact the quality of life of our residents, businesses, and visitors to West Hollywood and are woven into the city spirit of community activism and civic pride. Programs are balanced with a deep commitment to provide social services to community members in need and to improve quality of life. The City of West Hollywood has for decades funded robust social services to support residents through its Social Services Division, and more recently through the Strategic Initiatives Division. The city has provided millions of dollars in grants to fund programs that include services for seniors, people with HIV and AIDS, members of the LGBTQ community, people with disabilities, alcohol and drug use recovery programs, support programs for Russian-speaking immigrants, services for people who are homeless, food programs, and health care services for people who are uninsured. Today, the city budgets approximately $5 million per year to support social service agencies that impact thousands of people in West Hollywood. While the city has maintained a consistent law enforcement presence during the past 2 decades, West Hollywood has steadily expanded investments into alternatives to traditional policing. This includes neighborhood livability programs, civilian security teams, contracted social service agencies, and funding for the city dedicated MET team, which is a model partnership between the LASD and the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. For tonight's presentation, we will start with the public safety updates from the Sheriff Captain Ed Ramirez and Acting Assistant Fire Chief Drew Smith. After they finish both of their presentations, they will respond to any questions from the City Council. Next, Richard Bernard from FM3 will present the results of a resident survey that was recently conducted, and he will respond to any questions from the City Council regarding the survey immediately after that presentation. And then finally, Christine Stafford, our budget officer, will give a high-level overview of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Staff Report, which is item 4D. She will be followed by Public Safety Director Kristen Cook, Social Services Manager David Juney, and Strategic Initiatives Manager Corey Plank. They will present some of the city's existing programs and new programs that have been recently discussed between staff and various council members and commissions. After Kristen, David, and Corey, we will have all finished their presentations. We will respond to council member questions regarding any of the presentations or programs. After the council member questions are addressed, we will begin public comment. So with that, I will turn it over to Captain Ramirez and Acting Assistant Fire Chief Smith.
Thank you, David. Chief Smith, are you with us? There you are, sir. I'm Kristen Cook, Public Safety Director for the City of West Hollywood. Happy to introduce Assistant Fire Chief Drew Smith, who's going to start off with the fire report, and then following Chief Smith, we'll turn it over to Captain Ed Ramirez. Thank you, Chief.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the City of West Hollywood for all the support of our firefighters. So just to start off, we, the Los Angeles County Fire Department, are proud to be protectors of life and property for West Hollywood. We reflect the community and its core values and what we stand within, and that's integrity, teamwork, caring, courage, commitment, and community. Looking at January through July of 2021, we have a 6-month run totals. And just to bring things into average of how busy West Hollywood keeps us for that life safety services, your West Hollywood firefighters do about 16 responses a day. That's just under around or at 500 a month. And what we've seen also with that call volume increase with medical calls, we've also seen our fire frequency go up. And so we're looking at somewhere between 5 and 9 fires a month that we see. And some of those are small and some of those develop to be quite larger. And that is concerning to me, just because even though they're smaller fires, but they do lead to larger fires that increase potential property loss or civilian and firefighter injury or fatalities. We have possible work time loss with our residents or our patrons there that get injured, or our places of work that may be damaged. And it does have an effect on the community and the livelihood of the community. So we have seen a rise in the last 6 months, comparatively speaking, to the last 6 months of 2020. Also, our organization is very robust in its emergency medical responses, and also with a community involvement with 911. So we have very quick response times, even through how congested traffic may be in the city of West Hollywood at times. So we're very efficient in what we're doing. On the opening of our businesses, meaning that our public counters are open for those fire prevention related manners that may come into play. So we have opened that up within Los Angeles County and also there within West Hollywood Fire Prevention. And we also have, as you know, a very robust social media platform to really give positive and valid information of what goes on in the city of West Hollywood that reflects what our great firefighters are doing in the city of West Hollywood for public safety and the safety of you all and all the people that visit the city of West Hollywood. So you can follow us, of course, on our Facebook page, our Instagram, Twitter. And also one thing that we've done, if you'd like to look and see what we do, is you can go to YouTube, and we have all of our training, department training on YouTube catalog there. So you can look at what your firefighters go through to provide you that 5-star service that we like to perform for the city of West Hollywood and all the residents and people who visit Los Angeles County. For my office, you have myself and 2 support persons, which is Megan Courier, who is the community service liaison, and also our Division 7 secretary, executive secretary, which is Melissa Lambert. So we're there and here to serve you if you have any needs. And with that, I'll open it up to anybody out there that has any questions for the fire side of the house. What? There's got to be one.
How are you feeling?
Feeling great.
Good. Okay, well, that's great. Thank you so much, Chief Smith. And I think we can, I think no questions is good news. So we can
reach out. We're here for you.
Erickson, do you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to thank him. I think he personally and his team saved my entire apartment building last year during the pandemic when there was a fire that broke out literally right next door in one of the apartments, and you all responded extremely quickly. I know your response time and your involvement with all of us in the community. I live right over by your station, so I'm there frequently walking by it. Your whole team is extremely friendly, and I see community members oftentimes always chatting with them, and they're very involved. But I just want to personally thank you, because I was impacted directly by your quick response times and all that during the height of the pandemic. And so I just want to thank you and your entire crew.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kristen?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Smith. With that, we'll turn over to Captain Ramirez.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, council members, city staff, and members of our community. I'm Captain Ed Ramirez of the West Hollywood Sheriff Station, and I am happy to be here tonight to share information about public safety in West Hollywood and talk about the 6-month report for the time period of January 2021 through June of 2021. Part one crimes, which are the serious crimes, serious crimes such as homicide, robbery, burglary, rape, grand theft, arson, and assault decreased 6% for January through June 2021 versus January through June 2020. The 678 total part one crimes is the lowest January through June total in the city's history. The previous low was 719 total part one crimes, which was set in 2020. Both years were heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and closely related to the closures of our clubs and businesses. For reference purposes, the January through June part one crime numbers for the previous 3 years prior to the pandemic averaged 1,070 incidents. I would also like to add that monthly statistical information is reported to our Public Safety Commission during their monthly meetings, and this information can be accessed via the city's website. As mentioned, the pandemic played a large part in our reduction of part one crime incidents. When we look at March and April of 2020, we had the lowest number of part one crimes in the history of the city. March 2020 had 92 part one crime incidents, and April 2020 had 82. When you consider the average number of part one crimes per month prior to the pandemic was between 180 and 220 part one crimes per month, it is clear how much the citywide shutdown affected our crime rate. That said, prior to the pandemic, at the beginning of 2020, we were already trending down with an almost 30% decrease in part one crimes than the year before in 2019. This was largely due to the diligence and hard work of deputy personnel assigned to West Hollywood Station. And I cannot speak more highly of our patrol deputies, cops team, entertainment policing team, MET team, and detectives, as their commitment, dedication, and care for our community was the driving factor in keeping crime down prior to COVID. We have a cops team that works during the day and handles a variety of issues, including quality of life issues and issues pertaining to our unhoused community. Their ability to develop lasting and meaningful relationships with our residents, businesses, and others in our community has much to do with our success. We have an entertainment policing team who work in the evenings and ensure nightlife safety. They have developed positive relationships with hotel, bar, club, and restaurant security and management in an effort to improve public safety in our city. In regards to our unhoused community in the city of West Hollywood, we are the first contract city within the Sheriff's Department to contract for a dedicated 40-hour per week MET team. The MET team has done an outstanding job of working with people in our community with mental health issues. Their work has reduced the incidence of force, created peaceful outcomes of high-risk situations, and prevented injury to the patient, responding deputies, and the public, and has freed up many valuable resources. We continue to work with members of our unhoused community, and we have a strong partnership with the city social services to help connect the unhoused community members with resources and assistance. Our cops team and entertainment policing team conduct care outreach operations for our unhoused community. CARE stands for contact, assist, resources, and always as a last resort enforcement. That said, unfortunately, there is a significant percentage of our unhoused community who are committing crimes in our city. Approximately 1/3 of all aggravated assaults are committed by transient individuals. A number of burglaries of subterranean parking garages, laundry rooms, storage areas, and commercial properties and vacant residents are being committed by the transient population. Additionally, trespassing and other minor disturbances have also been committed by this population, which has been taxing to our law enforcement resources. Sadly, many of these people are experiencing mental health issues, substance abuse disorders, substance abuse issues, or both. We continue to have a partnership with Tarzana Treatment Center to track people experiencing substance abuse disorder and get them into treatment. However, it has proven to be challenging because many individuals refuse help knowing there is nothing compelling them into treatment, such as a significant penal code charge or mandatory jail time due to the reduction of most drug crimes to simple misdemeanor offenses. In almost all of these instances, we simply write a promise to appear citation and hope that they show up in court. Unfortunately, law changes, specifically Prop 47 and Prop 57, and different filing practices by the district attorney's office has made maintaining public safety more difficult and challenging. We continue to address nightlife safety, especially pertaining to the reported drink spiking issue in some of our clubs. Our cops and EPT teams have conducted a number of operations in an attempt to mitigate this issue. There are a number of joint operations planned in the very near future, utilizing LASD investigative units and undercover investigators. Having said that, in September of this year, we provided the City Council with a comprehensive list of cases reported from 2016 to 2021 in which victims believed their drink was spiked and they were sexually assaulted. That list, however, did not include dispositions. I have since recently received this information, and I'm willing to share that with you today or tonight. And 3 cases, and in those 3 cases were filed with the District Attorney's Office. 4 cases were rejected by the District Attorney's Office. There's 1 active case, and the 23 other cases were closed for a variety of reasons, such as victims becoming uncooperative during the investigation, there being no workable information to help identify a suspect, or the victim was not desirous of prosecution. And in 1 reported case, which was highly publicized in a local media report, a person alleged to have had their drink spiked and been sexually assaulted in the bathroom at the Abbey restaurant. After further investigation, it was determined that no crime had been committed. As many of you are well aware, based on significant media coverage, there have been a series of armed street robberies on the west side of Los Angeles County, targeting victims wearing expensive jewelry and watches. Please know that we are currently working with our law enforcement partners from neighboring agencies on information pertaining to these robberies that have occurred over the last several months. Our detective bureau, along with our headquarters bureau detectives, are working tirelessly on solving these crimes and identifying the suspects. Additionally, in response to an increase in recent thefts, our cops and EPT team have also been conducting special operations to address the pickpocketing crime rings that have been operated in the city of West Hollywood. We are working very closely with security and management of our nightlife venues to mitigate these issues, and have expanded our social media sites to ensure visitors and residents are aware of the issue and to share information regarding the safeguarding of valuables such as wallets, purses, and cell phones. Our cops and entertainment policing teams continue to conduct weekly special operations to address burglaries, robberies, and nightlight safety. Additionally, the teams have resumed using bikes for patrol, so you will see them biking around the city. This will provide greater visibility and provide for a more personal approach to community outreach. With the reopening of the city and having done our part to assist in the city in saving money during the pandemic related closures, we would like to respectfully ask that our deputy and sergeant items be restored to our entertainment policing teams. With many of the duties increasing for these teams, it is pertinent to our operation and the safety of the city to have these personnel restored at the earliest possible convenience. The city has graciously provided resources to have footbeats on the east and west sides of town several days per week, as well as daily park patrols. These are impactful programs that have been instrumental in positively affecting our crime rate, and we would like to see them potentially expanded to a 7-day-a-week program sometime in the foreseeable future. As you all know, the Center of Policing Equity is conducting a study of West Hollywood Station. We are working closely with them and have provided them with the initial 30-day information sample pertaining to our uses of force, pedestrian stops, vehicle stops, calls for service, and pursuits. We are waiting for the guidance from them and further direction, and we eagerly look forward to the results of this study. I want to thank West Hollywood's Director of Public Safety, Kristen Cook, for a wonderful partnership, and we always appreciate her support and flexibility. Her leadership has allowed us to better serve and protect the city of West Hollywood. In closing, I want to thank Mayor Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, Councilmember DeMico, Councilmember Horvath, and Councilmember Erickson for their support and commitment to the safety of everyone in West Hollywood. And with that, I will take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Captain. Are there any questions at this time from my colleagues? I think we're all holding our questions till this whole presentation is done, but thank you for asking. And also, I just want to thank the volunteers at the station. 1,259 donated hours valued at $33,829. Very impressive, and we appreciate their work. So thank you so much.
Mayor, I did have a couple of questions for
Councilmember DeMico.
Captain Ramirez. Captain, thank you for this update. I think part of our discussion later will perhaps be more encompassing than the update of crimes and activity, crimes solved and criminal activity pursued by the Sheriff's Department. But I had a couple of follow-up questions on what you presented. The first is regarding rapes and sexual assaults. And I wonder if, since there has been some significant amount of attention rightfully paid to the number of people who have reported that their drinks have been spiked at our local businesses, if we could begin to keep track of that and separate that out in our list of crimes that we follow over time. And I appreciate the follow-up about the, I think you said 34 cases, and if I understood what you said, 4 were dismissed, 3 are currently being investigated, and the others were dropped because of some kind of lack of participation or interest from victims, or a lack of information about suspects. So I appreciate that follow-up as well. And I wanted to go back to October 28th and the murder of Kayla Hurst in West Hollywood, since that's a very unusual crime to happen in our city. And I found online that her name was released, I guess, sometime in early November of this month. And I wondered, was she a resident of the city? And is there anything you can tell us about the crime itself, and whether someone, one or persons are persons of interest in that crime? And if there's any information about that you can tell us.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember D'Amico. In regards to the rapes and sexual assaults, yes, I have had discussions with Lieutenant Bill Mulder, and we will separate them out and have that statistic available for you for future reports. And in regards to the homicide here in the city of West Hollywood, that information was released by the coroner's office. It wasn't something that was released by our homicide detectives. As of today, the last report we received, it is still being investigated by our homicide unit, and I don't have any other information I could speak about regarding the crime. That would have to come from our homicide detectives.
Thank you, Captain. I don't. I guess two final things. I certainly don't want this to turn into another series of questions of the local sheriff's department about a murder in our city that becomes answered by, that's something we can't answer, that has to come from our downtown office. I think we learned in the past that those kinds of answers frankly just aren't really sufficient. So I guess what I would say is perhaps Kristen can follow up with you, and you can follow up with them, and she can let us know, and we can let the public know what they are doing about this murder in our city, because I think it's important, and certainly serious enough that some additional follow-up on an ongoing basis until this is solved is worth doing. And finally, I guess I have a what I think is a fact, but I'm going to ask you if it is, and if it's not, that you would correct me. But I've heard that your station spends up to 50% of its time dealing with homeless persons or assaults, mostly nonviolent, domestic disputes, mostly nonviolent. And I just wondered if you could break down sort of by percentage, 30%, 40%, something like that, how much effort the Sheriff's Department puts into sort of nonviolent activity, nonviolent calls in which, the full force of the Sheriff's Department has to show up versus somebody who is called because some kind of part 1 or part 2 crime has been committed and they need that kind of a follow-up.
Yes, in regards to the homicide, I will work very closely to get any information, speak to the handling, the detectives handling the case, and keep you updated with any information that becomes available. And in regards to your second question, remind me what that was real quick. I'm sorry, I was writing this down.
That's fine. So I guess the question is, and it may be my lack of full understanding of the Sheriff's Department and public safety generally, but I sort of imagine that there are three categories of activities that the Sheriff's Department sort of engages in. One is traffic stops, you know, good old fashioned traffic stops. Someone ran a red light, somebody speeding, somebody didn't stop before turning right. And then the second category would be sort of non-violent calls to the city that are more than a code compliance question, but there's not any sort of actual, you know, criminal, well, violent activity. You know, somebody, there's what appears to be a homeless person standing in the middle of the street screaming their lungs out. There's my neighbors next door having a fight, and it's making me nervous for both of them. Or, you know, there's somebody drunk and they're walking down the street and I'm concerned about their safety. So there's that kind of sheriff's station call. And then of course there's calls because people have been held up or something's been stolen or worse. And so I wonder if you could tell me how much time the sheriff's station spends on that sort of second category, non-violent but important calls that people make to the sheriff's station asking for the sheriffs to come and resolve something.
Okay, yeah, that's very clear. I will get with my crime analyst and work with him to see what information we can gather related to that. I don't foresee it being a problem, but I will talk to him to see if we can extrapolate that from the information he currently has.
Do you have a sense this evening about whether that's, you know, 10% of the deputy's time is spent on traffic and 40% is spent on, you know, domestic disturbances and 50% is spent on?
Yeah, at this time, Councilmember, I would be guesstimating, and I don't want to do that because it wouldn't be accurate, but I would certainly get a better number for you. I can tell you that it's pretty significant, but I don't want to put a number on it just yet until I speak with you.
Fair enough, but that's the question I would at some point like to get an answer to. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Erickson.
I actually have the answer for Councilmember D'Amico based on previous staff reports that have been presented here. And if staff wants to during a break, they can go back, but on 11:15, the Behavioral Health Crisis Response Unit report on page 7 states sheriff's data shows an average of 16% of all calls for services and observations involved unhoused individuals. So 2,061 of 13,288 calls observations. It also states that this data set didn't include the MET team evaluation. So if we're looking at least 16% of the sheriff's time related calls for homeless individuals, and then the 429 budget subcommittee presentation on page 14 shows that 13% of the sheriff's department time was spent on non-criminal homelessness matters and 5% of their time was spent on mental health matters. So it's around 18% of the sheriff's time was spent on this. And I'm going to leave that because that ties into the comments I'm going to make after all the stuff that we're done tonight. But I have that for you, so I want to make sure you have it. I am happy to send it to you.
I'm sorry, Councilman Erickson, what was the time frame for that? And who are the reports from?
It's on the 11:15 Behavioral Health Crisis Response Unit staff report. Time frame, I don't have it here in my notes, but the 429 budget, I'm guessing it'd be 2021. So and then the 429 or the 11:15 might be later, earlier. And the 11:15 item today on page 7, says it there. Sorry, I'm getting flustered. And then the 4/29, so April 29, 2021, the budget subcommittee presentation on page 14 says 13% of the sheriff's department time was spent on non-criminal homelessness matters, and 5% of the time was spent on mental health.
Okay, but that's not information from the sheriff's department.
It's information provided to us from our staff on these items. So I would hope that it would have been worked in conjunction with those individuals to make sure that those numbers are accurate.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Captain, I can interject. It's 4 months of data that was gathered by the strategic initiatives team, and it was data from the station. It's a different report than what Ed is probably looking at right now.
And I'm not sure that that answers Councilmember D'Amico's question entirely. It seemed to me he wanted to know what portion of calls are not homeless but not violent. Maybe I got that wrong, but.
I was actually interested in what portion of calls were including responses to homelessness and responses to domestic violence or domestic dispute, and any kind of calls that were really about a disturbance of the peace versus a criminal activity. Because I think, as John alluded to, and we're going to hear later, there's some interest in coming up with a possible set of solutions for those kinds of calls. And if it's, I was just wondering if how much of a percentage, so clearly it seems to be north of 20% of what the sheriff's department's calls are. That's an interesting fact, and whether it's 18 or 22 or 29, we'll find out from Ed in the future, but it is an interesting, we do have some, at least some sort of trend or some set of information. Thank you, John.
And I just have a quick question, Captain. We have had complaints that sometimes sheriff's deputies don't want to take reports. And I just wondered, is it possible to have administrative or your civilian employees taking reports in that way, leaving the sworn personnel to answer calls out in the field? I don't know what the policy is, so that's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you what the policy is and what's possible.
Yeah, no, our volunteers are not allowed to take reports. Our reports are taken by deputy sheriff personnel. I have heard reports that deputies may be or in the past have or given the impression that they don't want to take a report. I always advise my deputies to take a report, even if it's a suspicious circumstances report. As you will know, the purpose of taking a police report is to apprehend a suspect. And oftentimes there's not a lot of workable information, but I always advise them to take it because more information may become available at a later time, a later date. People may have seen something, people may have caught something on their Ring camera, so I highly advise them to take a report, and that's something we're working out here with our staff. But yes, I have heard of it, and we're trying to attempting to remedy that problem.
Thank you. And I know that the other issue with that is that if there isn't a report or a tag number, then it doesn't get included in our statistics, regardless of whether there was an outcome of finding the criminal or, resolving the crime. So that's why it's important. So thank you so much, Captain. If there are no, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we have Kristen on now, I'm just going to go ahead and ask some of my questions as well. Not sure if she or Captain Ramirez want to answer. Thank you. I wanted to know, I saw in the, and this may be coming later, but it's fine because we're looking at this all together. My understanding is that there are 60 deputies are equivalent to full-time. How many total deputies are there today? I remember asking when Captain Ramirez, I met with you and Lieutenant Mulder, asking how many deputies there are in West Hollywood. At the time, I was told 76. So I just wanted to know rather than the equivalent number of full-time, how many total deputies there currently are in West Hollywood.
And I can jump in, and we're going to cover this a little bit later in the report. The 60 is the total number that is on what the county calls our 575. So those are the number of deputies that we pay for directly. That number does not include detectives, some of the operations staff. It doesn't include Captain Ramirez and other staff in the building. So the actual number of staff that serve the city is higher, closer to, obviously the number that the captain gave you. And depending on who you're counting, it's closer to even 100 people in the building. But the 60 are the direct, those that we are directly billed for by the county.
Okay. Do you want me to wait to ask follow-up once you do your report? Maybe I'll wait on that. I'll let you do your report, and then if you don't answer some more of my questions, I'll ask for follow-up. It might give better
Absolutely.
context.
And feel free to ask now as well.
Yeah, I'll wait. And focus more on the public safety update and current questions for the captain. I think that might be helpful. And then some of the other things may be addressed in the later presentations.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Councilmember Erickson, you have a hand up?
Oh. Sorry, I see someone is unmuted, a phone caller. There we go, sorry. Oh. And stop me, Kristen or Captain Ramirez, if this question mirrors Mayor Pro Tem Shine. Happy to not answer it. In terms of dispatch, to piggyback off of what Mayor Meister was talking about, our dispatch team, are those the same people come in here, based on their schedule? They're the same people, Tom, Dick, Susie, Harry, all of them, they're here all the time? Or does it change? Is it a new person, new group of people? Talk to me how your dispatch works, because I oftentimes hear from residents that, dispatch is a really big issue.
Yeah, typically our dispatchers and the folks assigned to dispatch are the same people on a regular basis. We have the front side of the shift and the back side of the shift. They're here for 12 hours and they work 2 separate shifts. But if you call, you're typically going to get the same people unless we have somebody in there working an overtime shift because somebody is on vacation or off for a particular reason.
And that's all. That was my only one question for right now. I'll save everything else.
Okay, so I think then we can move on to the next update. Is that code compliance?
So next will be Richard Bernard with an overview of the survey that was conducted.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to wait for Christine to put up the slides. And while she does, I want to thank the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff for inviting me to present the results of the city survey on community safety. We can go to the first slide, please, or the next slide. How about one more? When I was contacted to draft and field the survey, I was asked to come into this survey and develop questions that were unbiased, that had no agenda, and just, in fact, just let the community of residents 18 years of age and older speak to their experiences and opinions. And that's what we endeavored to do. We conducted the survey between October 26th and November 3rd. We conducted a dual mode survey, which means residents were able to respond either online or by the phone. We conducted a random survey among 568 City of West Hollywood residents 18 years and older. For questions asked of everyone, the margin of error is a little less than 5%. We contacted folks by telephone, emails, and text invitations. And as we do, and as you do, and everything West Hollywood, we provided the survey in English, Russian, and Spanish, and the respondent was able to choose which one they would like to use. And then finally, before I begin to show you some data, I want you to note that if something doesn't quite equal 100%, I blame that entirely on rounding error. So if we can go to the next slide. And here, I wanted to give you some kind of sense of the demographics of the city of folks who are age 18 plus. And I'm very familiar that the council members and many of the public know this, but it's a good refresher. The left-hand column are demographics of age, self-described gender identity, and self-described race and ethnicity. And you can see in the middle column are the most recent census data that is available. And on the right-hand side are the survey results, the demographics of the survey participants. In some cases, we marginally weighted the data to ensure that they were representative of the population. We stayed in the field a little bit longer than normal to ensure that folks who are 18 to 34, who typically are not quick to respond to surveys, had an opportunity to respond. And you could see that demographics nicely mirror the census data. The implications, as I'm sure you can see, and given the topic tonight, is that the city is primarily a city among residents who self-identify as white, approximately 3/4, which means that residents of color make up a smaller percentage, and you can see some of the numbers here. And in the case of the survey, some folks chose voluntarily not to identify their race or ethnicity. The result is that we have, of the sample size, again, of 568, we have 125 people of color who responded to the survey, which represents the proportions statistically of the population 18 plus. I am going to withhold giving unique data for particular demographic groups because people of color, the various groups are, as I'm sure people can appreciate, not monolithic. They have diverse, important, rich cultures with varying opinions. And so I will present the data here, and I would recommend or encourage the city to take this as a data point and use other opportunities perhaps to reach out to the communities in a more qualitative way, to hear more voices and hear more opinions about the various questions that will be asked and presented in the survey. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to get to the content of the survey. We began early on in the survey just simply asking, how safe is your neighborhood during the day and how safe is your neighborhood at night? A random half the sample heard day first and then they heard night. The other half heard night and then day to not bias the results. And as we could see from the data, and this is true of virtually every a community safety survey that I've done, most people or majority of people feel safe, either very or somewhat safe in their neighborhood during the day, less so at night. About 1 and 2 said they were very or somewhat safe, with only 17% saying very safe. In the day, it's 41% who say very safe. And then at night, you could see 23% say they do not feel very safe. And while those percentages are lower than the folks who say very or somewhat safe at night, they're still quite significant. Almost a quarter of the population said not very safe. Next slide. And I'll be showing some geographic differences tonight. So let me sort of explain this slide the first time around. We've divided the results into 3 segments of the community. The west side are folks who live west of La Cienega. The city center are the folks who live from La Cienega east to Fairfax. And then the east side are the folks who live east of Fairfax. And the percentages that you see at the bottom are the percentages below West Side, City Center, and East Side are the percentages that the folks make up of the population of 18 years of age and older in the city. And I'll remind you that the blue bars, the darkest blue is very safe and the brighter blue is somewhat safe, and I've aggregated those numbers. The fairly safe, so that's kind of average, is the duller orange, and the brightest orange is not very safe, and the gray are the folks who volunteered. They didn't know enough to offer an opinion. You could see in terms of the responses to the very safe, somewhat safe, that statistically, because the margin there is a little bit bigger because we're looking at smaller slices of the community, statistically, there's not really much difference with respect to the very safe and somewhat safe. On the bright orange, on the west side and city center, they're at the low 20, 22. On the east side, it's 27. That could be a significant difference, or it could be within the margin of error. But as we move on in the presentation, you will see bigger differences between the west side and the east side in other questions and responses to other questions. I also want to point out before we move on that younger residents between the ages of 18 and 39 were more likely to say that they felt safe at night in the city, whereas folks from 40 to 64 were more apt than younger folks to say they did not feel very safe. So there's a little bit of an age dynamic occurring with respect to this question. Next slide, please. Now, this is one question that we were able to ask in 2016. So you'll notice an answer for 2021 and in two cases, 2016. Here, we asked them, we randomized it and we gave them names of various organizations in the city. And we said, we'd like you to rate their job performance, giving them the option of excellent, which is the dark blue. The brighter blue is good. The duller orange is just fair or average. Poor is the brighter orange, and gray are folks who said they didn't know enough to offer an opinion. And on the right-hand side, I've aggregated the extremely and good ratings. And you can see with respect to West Hollywood firefighters, statistically not very much change in terms of their rating from 2016. We're finding it, and probably not surprising to some folks, that people struggle to use the word excellent when it comes to anything related to government, yet firefighters and specifically West Hollywood firefighters appear to be immune from this issue. Now, sheriff's deputies in West Hollywood. There's been a pretty significant decline in their job performance rating. In 2016, 77% said excellent or good. Now in 2021, we're seeing 49%. So just 1 in every 2 saying excellent or good. You'll note that there's a decline of 10% in those folks who are comfortable in saying excellent. And there's a significant increase in those folks who said poor at 15%. If you don't see a number in that orange bar, it means it was less than 5%. So it gives you a sense of the decline. And then finally, while we didn't ask specifically about the job performance rating by block security ambassadors, we learned in 2016 that it was imperative that we had to have a definition of who they were, because a significant percentage of folks just didn't know them by name. So we included the unarmed bike and foot patrol in neighborhoods and parks. And there you'll see the excellent and good is at 39%. Part of that is explained by the almost 1/3 who said they don't know enough about that group to offer an opinion. Nonetheless, you've got 10% who say poor and 19% who say excellent. Next slide, please. And here I'll show you some differences in terms of job performance vis-a-vis the sheriff's deputies. Again, split this up into the west side, city center, and east side. And the dark blue is excellent and the brighter blue is good. And you'll see I've aggregated those bars in each of the city areas, and 57%, a high percentage on the west side, rate the sheriff deputies for their job performance. About 1 and 2 give them an excellent or good rating in city center, and 38% give an excellent or good rating on the east side. Part of that difference can be attributed to 21% who said they didn't know enough to offer an opinion. The intensity is also worth noting. Excellent on the west side is 26%. It's only excellent 15% and 15% on the city center and east side. So you're starting to see some differences across geographies. And if I were to look at age, residents who are between the ages of 18 to 49 in the low 40s give it the sheriff's an excellent or good rating, whereas 50 to 64, 56% do, and 65 plus 66% do. So you see again another sort of age difference in terms of opinions, in this case with respect to job performance ratings by the sheriffs. Next slide, please. Now the next 2 slides that I'm going to present are issues that we presented on the survey. We said, I'd like to read a list of things that some people say may be public safety problems facing City of West Hollywood residents. And that's all we said. They were to then, as they chose, define if they considered it to be a public safety issue or not. And then we said, please tell me whether you think it's a very serious problem, which is the brightest orange, somewhat serious problem, which is sort of the dull, the middle color orange, and then the dullest orange is not too serious a problem. And the blue is not at all a problem. And then folks decide if they chose to opt to say they didn't have opinion, they are the grays. And then I've aggregated the very and somewhat serious on the right-hand side. Well, most striking of all is that homelessness, 90% rank it as, say it's a very or somewhat serious problem. This is consistent with the numbers we're seeing in other areas of Los Angeles and the city of Los Angeles and other surveys that my firm has conducted. What also is striking, that very serious problems at 72%, probably not surprising. I know the council has tried to address this a very important issue on multiple fronts. The next 2 items are package or mail theft, 73%, very somewhat serious, but note the drop from homelessness at 72 to 43%. Unsafe driving and speeding, pedestrian safety, auto theft or auto break-in, and as you go down the list, you can see some of the other items. And if we can go to the next slide, please, you'll notice the very and somewhat serious have begun to decline, and the not too serious, not at all serious problem or don't know have begun to increase. Now, I also don't want to minimize the fact that if there's 41% who say, for example, sexual assault or rape are a very serious or somewhat problem, it's not low. That's quite a large number. Comparatively to homeless, it's not as large, but nonetheless, it's, I'm sure most would suggest that it's too high. Any is too high. I can assure you, I'm sure, on all of these issues. Racial harassment is at 39%. I will remind you that a disproportionate number of folks who answered the survey for the reasons I gave earlier are identify as white or Caucasian. And that should partly explain the lower numbers there. Next slide, please. And as we move on into the survey, this is the only battery question where I did not randomize. We asked them, we said, changing the topic slightly for a moment, how serious of a problem has law enforcement mistreatment of people of color? And then we interjected nationwide. Then we asked the question in Los Angeles County, asked the question, and in West Hollywood, and asked the question, been over the last 2 years. And you could see the options are extremely serious problem, which is the brightest orange, very serious problem, which is the mid-color orange. I've aggregated the very or some, the extremely or very serious on the right-hand side. Somewhat serious problem is the dullest orange. The blue is not too serious a problem, and not at all serious a problem is the darker blue. And then the gray are folks who didn't know enough to offer an opinion. So what I interpret from here is that context matters. That's the first thing. That the views that we saw on our TV set or online or in the more print media about what's going on in places like Ferguson, Minneapolis, New York, so many other places that I could be here all night mentioning, is perceived as a very serious problem by 7 in 10. When you ask a little closer to home in Los Angeles County, still a majority of 56% say extremely very serious problem. And in West Hollywood, it's 25%. Now, I don't, again, want to minimize that any percentage is a serious problem. So I'll put that on the table. But I do want to suggest that there are some nuances and differences. Now, the difference partly in West Hollywood can be explained by the fact that 3 in 10 don't know enough to offer an opinion, where those percentages are much lower on nationwide in Los Angeles County. But nonetheless, those blues, that 28% is larger than is true in the Los Angeles County case and in the nationwide. That being said, if I were to add the somewhat serious, the numbers would be 81% nationwide, 75% in Los Angeles County, and 43% in West Hollywood. So you'll see that there is a differential in terms of perceptions of this being a serious problem, in spite of the fact that there are important numbers in each one of those jurisdictions. But context does matter, and that's all I meant to take away from this slide. Next slide, please. We then asked them, do you think that the city of West Hollywood should invest more city funds, less city funds, or about the same amount of funds for sheriff services? Now, before I get into the data, I want to point out 2 things. One is we randomized whether someone heard more or less. So if I were to have taken the survey, of which I was not, I was on Do Not Call Us because I live in the city, I might have heard more and then less. The next person would have heard less and then more. It was really important for us to try to not bias the order of that question. Everyone heard about the same at the end. And the other thing I wanted to point out is the question doesn't say what sheriff services would be funded. And that's important. I can't, in this slide, speak to that. That having been said, 38% said more, 26% said less, and about a quarter said the same, with 11% saying they didn't know enough to offer an opinion. What's striking to me are 2 things. One is that the intensity around this topic, when people talk about it, is quite illuminating from whatever position one is talking about, but that the intensity of this question was 18% much more and 16% much less. Statistically, no difference in intensity among the residents that responded to the survey. And the other thing is that this is not a clear-cut issue. That's for sure. That whatever the council in its wisdom decides to move forward to or not move forward to, that there will inevitably be people who are dissatisfied regardless of what one does, because it's not a clear-cut response. There are different viewpoints within the city, clearly demonstrated by this question. Next slide, please. And if we were to look at the geography again, I'll remind you that the blues are the more. So the dark blue is much more, the light blue is somewhat more, and the oranges are the less. The bright orange is much less, the duller orange is somewhat less, and I've aggregated the mores and the less in each situation. So what we see from this is that on the west side, plurality would like more versus less, 41 to 24. In city center, it's similar in terms of more to less, 39 to 24. And note on the east side, it's virtually the same, 32, 33. What's striking to me is that deep orange or that bright orange is 21%. There's much more intensity on the east side to have much less compared to much more, which is only 12 points. Whereas the other intensities, it's a little bigger on the much more on the west side to the much less, and city center statistically somewhat similar. And you can see in all cases about a quarter of each of those groups said keep it about the same. So if I were to look at age, 18 to 29 is pretty similar, both more and less, though the intensity is overwhelmingly on the left side. 30 to 39 is the one group which overwhelmingly wants less versus more. And then as you go up, one goes up on age, there's always more to less, comparing 40 to 49, 50 to 64, and 65 plus. So, and again, an age differential on this question as well. Next slide, please. So we presented 8 services to them. I wanted to show it all on the screen, and I'll read the question. I'll give you a moment to review. I know that the council members have this data, but the residents do not. So I want to be respectful of that. But let me read the question first. I'm going to mention some ways that the city could try to improve the safety of the community. Please tell me how much of a priority you think it should be. We gave them a much more of a priority, somewhat more of a priority, somewhat less of a priority, much less of a priority, and we rotated it again to make sure there wasn't a bias. Some heard much first, some heard less first, but we said at the end, please keep in mind that the city has limited budget and not everything could be the highest priority. I know you folks have to make some very tough decisions with a finite amount of reserves. And I know residents always do want more because they want the best for their city, but they don't always have that nuance about having to make cuts or not make cuts in order to spend money elsewhere. So the 3 items that we described, and this is just definition, it's not meant to bias them, and we worked with your city staff to get a definition, was mental evaluation team, behavioral health crisis response team, and the block by block security ambassadors, which I discussed earlier. I'll take a moment for people to look at it, and then I will move on. Okay. All right, for the respect of people's time, so I'm going to move on to the next slide, please. And these are shorter nomenclatures, but be assured that everyone got those definitions that you saw on the previous page. And remember, the dark blue is much more of a priority. The brighter blue is somewhat of a priority. The duller orange is somewhat less priority, and the bright orange is much less of a priority. And the gray are the folks who did know enough to offer an opinion. I've aggregated the total more and the total less on the right-hand side. So of the 8 services, 7 of them
Richard, I think we lost you.
We lost you, Richard.
One moment and I'll text Richard to see if we can get him back on.
Thanks, Christine.
If he needs to reboot, we could always take a break and come back in 10 minutes if that works for everyone. Does that work for everyone? Councilmember D'Amico, I see you shaking your head. Why don't we take a break and we'll be back at 9 o'clock and hopefully Richard will be with us. Okay? Melissa?
Yes, Mayor. I'm
Okay.
going to put up the
Okay.
slide. Thank you. I apologize. I didn't know
Thank
you were waiting. Thank you.
First quarter